Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the official blueprint for creating Indonesia's expert guardians of public health. We're talking about a regulation called PKBPOM number 18 of 2017, and it lays out exactly what it takes to be a food and drug supervisor, or PFM.
But just stop and think about that question for a second. I mean, the safety of the food you eat, the medicine you rely on, even the cosmetics you use, it all comes down to the expertise of these professionals. So how do you make sure that every single one of them is truly ready for that responsibility? Well, that's the very question this entire framework was built to answer.
All right, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the core mission, the why. Then we'll get into the blueprint itself, what competence actually means here. After that, we'll check out the 6 different arenas where these experts have to prove their skills, map out their career path, and see it all work in the real world before we wrap up with why this blueprint is so important. So, first things first, before we dive into all the details, we really need to get a handle on the mission here. Why go to all the trouble of creating a standard like this? It all boils down to one absolutely critical idea. You see, at its very core, this whole thing is about building and maintaining public trust. It's about taking professionalism from just being an expectation to being a certified, verifiable reality. That certification is the promise, the guarantee, that the public can truly trust the people who are safeguarding their health every single day. Okay, so now let's get into the nuts and bolts of the blueprint itself. We're shifting gears from the why to the what. What are the actual components that define what it means to be an expert food and drug supervisor? The entire system really revolves around this one term, technical competence. But listen, this isn't just about what you know from a textbook. The regulation defines it way more broadly, as a complete capability that's actually built on 3 different essential pillars. And this right here, this is really the heart of the whole blueprint. See, competence isn't just one thing. It's this powerful mix of knowledge, that's the theory, then you have skills, that's being able to do it in the real world, especially when things go wrong. And finally, work attitude. That's the professional integrity that guides every single choice. You absolutely need all 3 to be a true expert. So if that's what competence is, where exactly do these officials have to prove it? Well, the regulation is very clear. It lays out 6 distinct arenas, or functions, where a PFM official has to demonstrate their expertise. And just look at this table. It really shows you the incredible range of this job. I mean, a supervisor's work covers every single part of a product's life. They're looking at documents before a product can even be sold, and then they're out inspecting the factories. They're in the lab running tests, investigating when things go wrong. They're educating the public, and they even help write the very rules they enforce. It's a role that demands an incredibly diverse skill set. Now, this blueprint doesn't just define a set of skills. It actually defines a career. So let's take a look at how it maps out the entire professional journey for a food and drug supervisor. The path is laid out in 4 crystal clear expert levels. You begin as a first expert, and as you gain experience and prove your competence, you can move up to junior, then middle, and ultimately senior expert. It gives everyone a very transparent ladder for professional growth. And moving up those levels isn't random. It's all based on these 2 types of competence. First, you've got your core competencies. Those are the must-have skills for the job you're doing right now. But then you have elective competencies. You can think of these as your personal development track, the extra skills you build to specialize and to qualify for that next step up the ladder. It's a brilliant system for encouraging continuous learning. Okay, so all this theory is great, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's get really specific now and look at a couple of actual competency units from the regulation. This is where you can see just how detailed this blueprint gets. Okay, let's start with an example from the inspection function. And just notice the precision here. It's not just inspect a factory. It's conducting inspection of production facilities. And it's even rated for difficulty. That level of detail shows you how rigorous the system is. But the evaluation criteria, that's where it gets even more interesting. So the assessment goes way beyond some simple checklist. Of course, they're measuring diligence and accuracy, but they're also evaluating an inspector's ability to analyze critical risk points. And this is what I find fascinating. They actually assess their intuition. that gut feeling that only comes from deep experience. You can't fake that. Now, to really appreciate the breadth of this framework, let's jump from the factory floor straight into the high-tech lab. This competency unit comes from the testing function, and it deals with a very specific, very complex type of scientific analysis. And right away, you can see the intense level of scientific rigor that's required. The assessment is all about precision at every single step, making solutions, operating the machine, processing the data. But just like with the inspector, it also comes down to a higher level skill, the ability to recognize when the results just don't look right. That's the mark of a true expert.
So, we've walked through the why, the what, and the how of this whole system. Let's bring it all home and ask the most important question of all. Why does having a blueprint like this actually matter so much? Well, when you boil it all down, this blueprint creates this amazing positive cycle. The individual professional, they get a clear path to grow their career. The agency, it gets a highly skilled, professional, and accountable workforce. And, most importantly, the Indonesian public gets a system they can count on to keep them safe. It's truly a framework where everybody wins.
So this blueprint is an incredible, powerful tool for ensuring a high standard of competence. There's no doubt about it. But it leaves us with one final, really interesting question to think about. A regulation can define what makes someone competent, but what is it that pushes them to go beyond that, to achieve true excellence? Well, that's where the human element, that passion and dedication to protect others, really takes over. Thanks for watching.